I want to very quickly speak about Metatron's cube and my relationship with it. This is not a video that you should be seeing as your first video of me. If this is the first time you're seeing or hearing my voice, don't listen to this. Go listen to who I am first, and then come and listen to this. Because what I want to talk about is how enlightenment is its own story, and also how experience needs to become aware of its self-reflectiveness to self-reflect. It becomes hard to self-reflect when you can't think of yourself being anything else other than you are now. When you think, this is me, there's literally nothing else that could be me, this is me, this is the idea of me, that is when you're convinced by the idea of you. This world has many dimensions, many layers. There are stars above us. There are ants below us. There are many different formations of movement and direction. There are many directions in consciousness. Consciousness always has direction. It is simply what is attracting experience to itself. That is what we are simply looking at. Therefore, I want to bring in a very important idea here, which has not been used in the same way. In other words, I find what comes across or may come across as interesting is because I'm using words like they've never been used before, and that's good in a world where in a world where the species was convinced they had seen everything. You know how many different types of seeing are present, are options to the human being. You can choose many ways to look at your life. This is the way you're looking at your life is one way, one program, one version of your life, one programmed version of your life. You can have many other literally life journeys by looking at how many different lives you can live. But understand that it is a subtlety and an awareness that shows what is aware of the difference and the differentiation. In other words, you find what is aware that things are separate, and that is always a unified state of being. And a unified state of being at its peak meaning is unknown. So you are an unknown, integrative, collective, existential state of being. So literally, when you tap into that, you're not looking for money anymore or gold chains. You're trying to break all chains. You're not looking for a gold chain to feel you have accomplished an amazing life, but in fact, that was just an interesting idea. Your experience of life was limited. I want you to think literally, if a child is born, let's say on its second year, the child's ideas don't evolve. Literally, the ideas the child has of the world don't evolve. Right? And that kid would literally live the rest of his life only with an experience of a 2-year-old self, for example, only with the storyline of a 2-year-old self. You need to recheck the stories that you're telling yourself. You need to reevaluate your truth and see that if truth is a word, is it in a story? Who is the journeyer? Who is having the journey? Self-reflection at its core is your breaking of ideas. Ideas break when you self-reflect, when you look at yourself. We're always tuning our experience to areas which we can work with. In other words, you can simply experience yourself as a multi-intelligent connectivity that is experiencing disconnected version of itself. And it can do infinite because it's always connected. The connection is conceiving a disconnection. Humanity right now on Earth needs to understand what I'm saying and understand it more than just words, because it is implying an action-oriented silence and stillness of all confusion. Before, I want to tell you literally the minds of my life, and I am 22. So for a 22-year-old, you think, how am I going to have an abundant life? When you look at that, you realize at the end of your life, because you're involved with other people, other stories, other ideas, you find yourself the full value of all the ideas present in your existence. Therefore, an idea is a space of creativity. We have artists, we have people bringing in new ideas. So we see there's a flow of idea in our planet. There's always, it's as if humanity is its own self-harmonizing tissue. It's like there's some human beings, such as artists, such as any voice that speaks on the wavelength that I'm communicating, simply understands that it is your gift right to experience your creativity, your creation. You need to flip the pages of the book that you are and see that you could have always drawn, you could have always sang, you could have always brought brilliant ideas into the page of every book you read. How you use your mind really suggests how you feel life is using you. Because who's alive to use the mind? It's life. So, with our sensitivity to where our existence comes from, both in its mental arena and both in the physical arena, we can understand a greater approach to our unknown, which is always in the moment because we don't know what could happen. We can have a greater relationship between the ratio of our knowing and not knowing. We need to have a healthy approach to how we think and how thoughts are communicated and what communication really is. Humanity's lessons. If I was a human being and I just literally looked and I'm like, what could humans learn? Because humans want to evolve themselves, they have to learn from themselves. You have to learn about this life by looking at humanity. Because you are that piece. You are the human piece in a unbroken world. You can choose to experience the breaking of the vase, or it never having to ever fell. It having never have to have taken that fruit. Or why was there punishment in heaven? Why was the sense of punishment in heaven if it was such a good place? Why did God or that command put Eve down and bring man into its lower form? How could that be heaven and having a punishment in heaven? How can you have punishment in heaven? How can you have punishment? How can you have one viewpoint in heaven? It is an existential state of being attained through certain phases of your life to discover that there never needed to be phases. Utilize your intuition. Utilize your inner knowing, your comfort. Even though you think you don't know anything about what you're going to do next, just acknowledge the certainty you have to even be alive. Do you know what I mean? A human being who knows how to be alive or why he's alive will live well. It is not ideas. It is not money. It is not harmony in a social system that was flawed in the first place. When you look at our president, don't just look at our president. Look at the ideas that president has in his mind. What ideas is that president around? What decisions he's making? If you were to analyze another person, you don't need to ask them anything. Literally look at how they're living their life. Look at the decisions they're making. And know that is what they're spending their days on. So that is the decision. That is them. The person I'm seeing right now is the person they are, regardless of the commentary they give about who they are. I can see directly through the eyes of another human being and knowing that we both want to know why we're alive. It's literally this innate knowing, because that longing is a different view. That longing is a transformation. It is very hard for you to transform if you don't know where you're transforming to or what you're transforming into. But evolution has always happened. Why are you afraid of death? It literally happens. It is just like how every time you blink your eyes, some human forms are dying. You know, you're not dying. Life is sensitive in regards to the value of life you have. In other words, your sensitivity shows you are there. In other words, if you how would I put this? It's as if you're sitting in your room with too much clothing on and you're sweating for no reason. Take off the extra clothes. Live light. Don't carry too many ideas, because once you carry too many ideas with you, you will literally build your own bridge to a very different reality. Do you know what I mean? Language, there is no such thing as someone not having a sacred experience. Guys, sacred experiences are always now. It happens always now. That's moments of divinity. It's always now. It's as if like you are choosing to stick with the same program of thought, which has been all the problems humanity has made to continue in their echoes, is the reason why you are in a trapped state of mind, where you have the definitions of a trap, which is going to affect your energy levels. Guys, the energy levels you have of your body, your physical body even, and any other body, is relevant to the ideas you have on energy. If you believe you're disconnected from this life, you will die as an object. If you choose to discover and see that you are connected to this life, you see that it's as if there was a programmer, and there never needed to be that many stories about your life to the point that you had to ask where the stories are coming from. All I am communicating is words. See the difference in space when silence appears. The mirror is always in your hand. You're always looking at it. Look deeply enough and you'll see yourself, having always stood on the other side outside the mirror. Human beings need good ideas. The greatest thing you can do for another human being is not to give them temporal resource, is to literally give them the greatest idea they have heard in their life. Literally the greatest viewpoint they can go achieve, and which can become their ability. To be a capable person, you need to see many ways of ability. You need to not judge yourself. You need to see that the scientist and the person who couldn't even speak have the same direction to their greater experience. It's always now. You are at the elevation of your life. You are one with life, because there was never an idea that is telling you were separate. You feel an innate knowing, because it's as if your life, the idea of you, was being controlled by your thought process, and that you are beyond thought. Because let me tell you, if you don't think you are beyond thought and you look about life, you will die in an idea. But if you see an idea, but also know you are beyond there's an existential relevance presence between you and the idea, right? What is our difference between objects? What is it that us as a human being find ourselves to have in common with everything else? When you look at that in whatever direction, you find the free flow that was always present in your life. Doubts create more doubts. But get rid of the first thing you doubted about life, and there's no reason to move without knowing how you're moving. You know how you're moving. You know how you're alive. You know your life. You know all ideas that are relevant to you. You know the being you are, regardless of the human image that you put on it. See, guys, humanity is evolving, and it's working with social groups. In other words, if you want to help society, you don't help by having an idea that is just small. When you want to help the world, you think about the big ideas. So when you do that, you have much more purposeful ideas around you. When you have purposeful ideas, when you literally think about humanity's problem, you then affect to evolve humanity. Guys, humanity is literally how humans are living. If you want to help how humans are living, become very aware of the first human being which is you that is living. Literally become aware of yourself. Ideas help you in transcendence. They're there for a reason. Ideas open man's eyes to his existence. And there are ideas because we are such creators that can create new spectrums. Our imagination has felt it's lost and disconnected with nature. Your imagination is life, it's existence. It is exactly what it is. Open yourself to a vaster way of receiving and looking at your life. Awareness means, at its early stages, not to just sit down on the grass and act, in a meditator's, position. I mean, it's not like acting, it's simply seeing. You see more. It's as if you understand another level of another always present dimension of seeing life. You look at life with more awareness to your bodies. That includes your mental body as well. That includes your physical body. It includes your presence. You define your presence. Never let anyone tell you what your presence has to be. You define your presence. You are the creators of definition. You are your first God to even know the words of how to ask such a question. Help your environment by sharing good ideas with it. Make the value of your awareness into a good action for humanity. It is time we no longer linger in our selfishness. It is literally time to become selfless and, as humanity, get the job done into our own transcendence, Guys, there's literally so much more communication we can have. In other words, I believe I could say I believe, but I know, based on my own experiences, that there are literally so many different forms of energies and technologies literally present right where we are, which we are not tapping into. See, one revolution is to break the doors, is to push aside authority that doesn't need to be there. That is one angle of rebellion. But guys, now we're at a point where our rebellion needs to be with our vision. We need to be rebellious with our self-identities. We need to self-reflect. We do not need to accept that we are failures in our life. No human being needs to do this. Cleanse your sense of disassociation with this world. Associate yourself, orient yourself, and let your ideas be loose. Never think you are that idea. You are always the one aware of the thought. Do not think that you're just the thought. But eventually, at some point, it will open up to you that you never were the thought. And some people have it inside. And it's not a voice, it's a knowing, it's a presence. It's a presence inside where you know that the way you're living your life is going the right place because you know your intuition, and regardless of the outlining you have put. Humanity or existence is a fabric made of many different weaves. We need to see the strings more than just string theory. We need to look and recognize that science can evolve with everything else that is evolving right now. Our definition of the human being suggests how able the human being can be. And regardless of any storylines, existence is infinitely able, so the human being exists. The human being is infinitely able. In other words, the consciousness is not limited. You just didn't come here to play with toys, which are simply bodies that are too real for you to be anything else. You're here to experience everything. You shouldn't think that the lecture throughout your day, which you go to, where the teacher is speaking, and you listening to that moment shouldn't be any different in regards to the importance than any other moment in your life. Have an amazing, and when I say amazing, I mean think about it very efficiently, that there's no reason not to be inspired every day. Inspiration means you're going at the highest peak of change to bring something else into your life. Be inspired. Be able to see any idea, even if it's a huge, healthy attraction towards you. Healthy attraction is simply your views on what you're attracting. Alignment comes from an uncluttered mind, the best. And may with my words so far, you understand that everything I have communicated is just what I know from experience. And you have all the information that is what you know. Work with what you know, but also evolve all the ideas you have of a changing self, of a self. Self-reflection is a collective act. Self-reflection is God's touch being its own finger. It's as if everything you have touched, it has touched you just as much. You're not disconnected. You're worried about ideas to the degree that you think you can't live well. You can always live well. You are life. Just well it up, you know. In other words, and also understand that there are, of course, different paths. There are many paths, you know. And there's no wrong path. It's just that you look at the ideas around you and you try to understand that before you know where you want to go, you better be able to see clearly. You want to see if your glasses are polished, and then you're looking at the direction you need to go. For example, if I want you, just as how you judge yourself from doing things in the past, literally think how required it is for example, you falling from your bike to affect how you are, let's say, in 30 years. See, it doesn't. See, we have done different things in our past at different values. In other words, we've done, on some day we've done a lot of good, on some day we've done some badness. For example, we've done whatever duality, right? Regardless of that, the past doesn't need to be kept around because it changes just as much the present. You see, the reason man can't time travel, is because his consciousness and his bodies are not acknowledging a reality where time travel is possible. History can be relived in your mind, literally, with full experiential grasp, as if you're right there and you can work with the dimensions of your mind. You can literally, with your creativity and infinite potential to do anything, bring in an idea that was present in the past. Literally, you need to understand, you are always experiencing your ideas right now. And that includes the idea of time. You're always experiencing yourself. That is the philosophy of my voice, of my work, of my life. And therefore, an appreciation of oneness must come from your own experience, not from someone telling you, hey man, sit down, be one with life and you'll be good. Do you know what I mean? It's not as simple as that. It is to truly see what that means. You don't understand, the people who have not looked at spirituality and devaluing and have not explored why people had that urge to seek a different, sense of being, if you haven't paid attention to that, you're missing some of humanity's greatest viewpoints. The science community, the scientific community, is at times missing a lot of amazing viewpoints that mysticism and spirituality communicate. And it's because mysticism goes as far as to break ideas. Science cannot break itself. Mystics let their ideas break. It's simply their presence. They are not trapped by ideas of their own creation. And they work experientially. Scientists understand the value of experience, but work at it through an idea. It's crazy because scientists believe that it needs to be observable. So everything needs to be observable and empirical. Empirical needs to be empirical. Empirical. It needs to be empirical. It needs to be real to the person who's defining the reality. Right? You need to look at the life that you are and see where your next excitement is for the next moment. If you are someone who's making decisions based on excitement, you love an experience of the moment outside of time. You don't want to be chained to a clock. That's the type of life you want to experience. So why do you keep feeling that you're late for something? You're late for something. Do you know why? Why do you have this programming that is its own unhealthiness? Self-reflect, because then you see what you are creating in your life. You see that self-creation. And as you work with that, you can look at life in ways where efficient and ideas and abundance and clarity is always present. There's no reason for you not to be a clear human being. Just clean up your mental clutter. Look at yourself. Self-reflect. Meditate. Become one with your existence, not with nature. One with your existence. Nature is just another thing that exists. Another way of existing. And with that, hopefully, you are the silence and the peak of its transcendence. Thank you.